Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, the weekly live stream where I talk about everything in Savage Worlds this past week, news, Kickstarters, and then we have a nice, fun discussion. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for tonight, Peter Saloom. Welcome to the stage, Peter Saloom. Howdy, howdy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Peter and I are going to talk about later creating Savage Worlds adventures and kind of talking about Peter's process and kind of go through some like tips and stuff to kind of making your own adventures. But for now, let's go ahead and start by talking about the news. And this week, we're going to start with the newsletter for the week. Peter, go ahead and just chime in about anything you see that's interesting. But the big news this week, I think this is the big news. Just let me make this a little bit bigger. No, that's not what I want. No. Wow. Okay. That just doesn't want to go to the thing I want. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. That'll work. All right. So the big news this week is that the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds booster campaign is going to launch May 14th. That's going to be the Bestiary 2 for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, and then the Advanced Player's Guide 2 for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds as well. Something that everyone's been looking forward to. You can see here there's going to be some new ancestries, including the Ifrit, Sylph, and the Undine. I'm not super familiar with my Pathfinder lore, so I'm not sure about that one. But as well as Gunslinger, Magus, and Ninja, and then new gear, new weapons, new powers, new magic items, also a bunch of fun stuff, and like spell duels. That sounds fun. I want to cast slings and spells in a duel. And then also construct creation is also something I'm super interested in. Just it sounds fun. And that's something that I probably would want to do necessarily as a character, but I'm super interested in seeing kind of like what those rules look like and seeing what they might look like for other products that we can maybe how you could use them like outside of Pathfinder.
Yeah, that looks great.
There's a lot. I mean, a lot of these things can be used inside of fantasy games in general. It doesn't have to be limited to Pathfinder, and that's one of the nice things about Savage Worlds is that you can just kind of take whatever mechanics you see and pull them into whatever game you're playing. Yeah. I'm super excited for that. That's the day before my birthday, so that's super exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, perfect birthday present. Deadlands: The Weird West Showdown at Sundown is now on Fantasy Grounds, and Fantasy Grounds is offered through Steam as well, so you can kind of get like through Fantasy Grounds or through Steam as like a DLC. So you can go check that out. I haven't played any Deadlands yet. I have the big box coming. I have the PDFs. I just haven't had a chance to play through it yet.
Oh man,
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
Get ready.
Yeah. Big sale over at Pinnacle. They are have 30% off print and PDF products, including a lot of like. I'll say that while they're older, they're for like deluxe editions or older editions. They are still easily compatible, and most of these have some sort of conversion guide available, so you can convert them into Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. And you may not see these products ever again, or not ever again. I'll say that. How's that? May not see these products necessarily like in Suede, so this is just a good chance to kind of grab them while they're on sale. 30% off and PDF. Personally, I keep hearing how amazing. Where is it? I know I saw it when I was looking at this email earlier. I saw it. Oh, here we go. 50 Fathoms. I know how people keep telling me how great 50 Fathoms is and how great of a plot point campaign it is, and I love a good plot point campaign. So I'm probably going to have to pick this one up. And then the other one I've been eyeing is Lankmar and Rippers. I've played the Rippers, but I don't have physical copies of the books. I just have PDFs, and I think I would like to get a physical copy of it.
That's awesome. There's also no guarantee that all of those things on that list ever become Suedified. You know, maybe they will. I can't speak for Peg. I don't know. But so if they're going to go away and maybe not be reprinted.
Right, exactly. This is a good
time to grab one.
Yeah. So who knows what's going on there? They did say they are making room for the new stuff. This is why a lot of this stuff is being sold at a discount. So that is why. So if you want to go check that out. Also Weird War stuff too. I've seen a lot of Weird War stuff, but I haven't dived into it. I think some of my players would be interested in that, but not something I'm particularly interested in. But if you're interested in World War I, World War II, fighting zombies type stuff, check it out. The Savage Universe stream is going to have I'm gonna probably butcher this name. I apologize, Jacob. Jacob Asu
I don't know if I can help you with that.
Osijuski, he's going to talk about the Slew Squad setting that he created for Swag. It is a big PDF, lots of pages, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. I listened to Carl over at Tabletop Tango talk about, or Satchel GM his YouTube channel, talk about this, and it sounds like it's a lot of fun. I do have a copy of it. I just need to read through it, like everything else that I need to read through. It's just kind of everything's stacking up. There's a lot, and I'm not a fast reader, so I just got to get through some stuff and get it all read.
Yeah.
So that is all the kind of stuff going on there. We do have some, like, you know what's coming up. I'm still waiting for pretty much these 4 things. I fortunately did not get necessarily evil, but I'm like, okay, all the next 4 things are in my pipeline, so just waiting for those, as well as a few other Kickstarters that I'm waiting for as well. So speaking of Kickstarters, let's go ahead and just jump over and talk about all the Kickstarters that are going on, because it seems like there's always Kickstarters going on, or Kickstarters coming up, or what have you. So let's go ahead and pull that over. And then I got, the switching the screens is like my only downside here. So let's go ahead and switch this over to, there we go. All right, so ending Thursday, May 9th, that's this Thursday, is the Battle Lords booster campaign. This is just to kind of fund more copies to be printed. Something they're going to do anyways. They're going to print these copies, but if you want to get in on some of these books and kind of pre-order through the Kickstarter, go ahead and check out the Kickstarter. All these Kickstarters should be in the description below. If they are not, let me know, but all these should be there. The Secret World Kickstarter started last week, yes, and ends Saturday, May 25th. So if you're interested in the Secret World is basically a modern setting with kind of like these organizations like the Illuminati, the Templars, and the Dragons, fighting behind the scenes against supernatural forces. These 3 groups are, while they're rivals, they're not necessarily, and they have their own kind of goals. They do all serve a common goal as well. So that's a cool little world. I started playing the MMO on my on Steam over the weekend, just to try and I didn't get very far, but I tried. Yeah, so I'll have to play a little more to get the lore, but that ends Saturday, May 25th. And kind of just like a preview on the 20th, so the last week of the Kickstarter for Secret World, we will have Star Anvil on the stream to talk about this a little more in depth. So hopefully I'll have a little more experience with the game by then. So starting Tuesday, May 14th, will be the Pathfinder Savage Worlds Kickstarter. I look forward to that. And then the next day, the day after, 2 in 1 week, Wednesday, May 15th, will be the Solomon Kane Kickstarter, which looks like it's going to be a hefty Kickstarter based on all the preview material they've given. We're talking miniatures, we're talking battle mats, we're talking the books themselves are going to have all the rules, so you won't need a core rule book of Savage Worlds. You can just buy the Solomon Kane books through this Kickstarter, and they'll have all the core rules, kind of like with Savage Pathfinder. So, and it's only running for a week. So if you miss it, it's going to be easy to miss. It's only 1 week. I don't know what this Kickstarter exclusive thing is. I've been saying that for the past few times. I don't know what they mean by Kickstarter exclusive. I can't imagine that means that they're not going to
market it after the fact.
Yeah, like they're going to print these books they're going to sell these books afterwards. I don't know what part is Kickstarter exclusive. I can't imagine they're going to do a 1 week Kickstarter and be like, nope, that's your only chance to get Solomon Kane. So I don't know if I don't know if it means like maybe the miniatures are going to be exclusive to Kickstarter.
Yeah, maybe some components of what you back, and I don't know the details here, but maybe some components are going to be exclusive to the Kickstarter event, and then afterwards those will be sort of like, sought after collectible type of items.
Yeah, possible. I mean, this is coming from so Monolith Games is in Europe. So I haven't seen I'm not sure that has to do anything. There's nothing about it, but yeah. So go ahead and take that out. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to back it. I just don't know. I'm nervous to see what kind of like all this stuff that they've been saying is going to be part of the Kickstarter. I'm nervous to see what the higher tiers of that Kickstarter are going to be, as far as like might be talking. I mean, I got 2 Kickstarters in 1 week. Ugh.
You don't know how deep you're going to get dragged.
Right,
here, right?
right, exactly. Let's see. All right, and then Verillium Blood Hunt. They White Witch Games did say they are doing a Kickstarter for this new adventure that's coming up. They have not stated when this Kickstarter is coming, but it should be quote soon. So who knows when that's going to happen? It may just be trying. They may be just trying to find a good time or a good slot in the Kickstarter.
You have to navigate. Yeah, you have to navigate the timing. It's very hard because the Kickstarter calendar for Savage Worlds is packed, and you don't want to be, butting right up against some other one for your own, kind of competitive purposes, I guess.
Especially Pinnacle themselves. Like,
Pinnacle, sure, yeah, yeah.
Like, and then one that's like so highly produced and so highly being done by like Monolith. So you just gotta navigate that calendar. Luckily, I guess, and that's a fortunate thing that the Solomon Kane one's only 1 week, is that you just gotta wait for that 1 week to be over, and it's not gonna be as bad. Also coming from Arrakis Games is the jumpstart for Shadow Worlds Vampires. I don't know a whole lot about this. I said a little more last week, but there's going to be a jumpstart coming, and this is not a setting per se. It's kind of more. This is like more material on how you can play vampires in like a modern day setting and whatever existing campaign you have. So it's more
sort
like
of a source book that you can draw from.
Right, more supplemental material than it is like a setting itself. So, all right. With that, we're going to move on to our main topic. If you're just joining us, I am the Savage Goose. This is the Savage Goose Show. And if you're like me, and there's many of you out here, there's many game masters that find themselves drawn to pre-written campaigns, and for good reason. They offer a very solid foundation for exciting adventures, but there's often, in many of us and in many of the players as well, an itch to create our own unique stories that can be accompanied by anxiety, internal pressure to do a good job, and just uncertainty on how to go about creating adventures, especially in Savage Worlds. There's a lot of good resources out there, but they're often meant for other systems like D&D, mostly D&D, Pathfinder, those systems. So how do we kind of create adventures in Savage Worlds? Plot points campaigns, they are a great boon for kind of developing your GM skills, as they leave more room to kind of fill in the gaps of making Savage Worlds adventures, crafting your own adventures from scratch. And it just might feel a little daunting, though. To bridge this gap, I'm thrilled to welcome Peter Saloom today onto the live stream. And today we are going to he's a game master. He's a writer, editor, a Savage Worlds Ace licensee. His portfolio includes creations of Shadows of the Sacred Hills and the recently released it's the Iselion Hybrid Adventures. Both of these are adventures for the Savage Worlds. You can see links down below to kind of check those out. Peter, thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the goal. Like I said, the goal is to talk about creating Savage Worlds adventures, and I think a lot of people have questions about creating adventures, creating encounters for adventures in Savage Worlds. If you look at pretty much that, like the Savage Worlds Discord or the Savage Worlds subreddit, people have a lot of questions on how to do certain things, and they have questions because they're coming usually from different games, or they're coming from a different experience, and they're just trying to recreate an experience they've had before, and what have you. So, Peter, you've been doing this for a while. You've got 2 for Savage Worlds. You've also been creating. Have you been creating adventures for other systems as well?
I have not in a professional capacity. I've been lucky enough to do editing and sort of feedback and proofing for other Ace licensees on other projects, and that's sort of how I got my foot in the door over the last handful of years. But I am brand new in terms of kind of putting my own stuff with my own name out there. 2024 being the first year that we've done that. We released Shadows of the Sacred Hills in February. Is very well received. I believe right now we're standing 7 units away from being a silver bestseller. So looking forward to that milestone. And then as of basically now is the first time I'm publicly sort of announcing that the Iselion hybrid is available for download and print on demand over at Drive-Thru RPG, and really excited to see, what happens with that.
Yeah, I've read both of the campaigns. They're both of the adventures. They're very well made. I know you talked about your layout designer was Carl Kiesler. If you know the community, anyone out there, Carl does a great job at layout design. I've seen so many other products. I just kind of look at them like, and I'm not like a layout person. I've become a layout person recently. I'm not sure why. But you look at Carl's stuff and it's just beautifully laid out. And so is the stuff in these adventures. But that's what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about publishing. We're not here to talk about layout. We're here to talk about creating adventures. I'm trying to think where to start, but I guess let's start with when it comes to adventure design, what is your overall high picture, high viewpoint philosophy on creating adventures? If you had a 2,000 mile viewpoint or whatever the phrase is of looking at how you're going to create an adventure, what is your overall 2,000 viewpoint philosophy on creating adventures?
The first facet to the whole tangled web of kind of getting through writing an adventure, and in my case also taking it through editing and publication, but for many people just the conception and the creation of the adventure.
Right.
I think for me the first piece is having that interesting and engaging premise, something that the narrative of the entire adventure, whether it's a one shot or whether it's a plot point campaign, there has to be some central premise that is interesting enough to you as the person creating it to put your energy into it and develop it. And you have to have some justification that your players also are going to engage in that in a way that is rewarding to them or hits the type of play style that they're interested in. A lot of GMs that are listening to this are probably thinking about writing adventures for their specific play group, and they know the interests and the dislikes of that play group. And so they know what would fly and what wouldn't. And so I guess you do have to use that as a filter. If your only audience is that one play group, you're certainly going to provide them with a good experience. But it's really the interesting premise. I always answer a question, the question is, what's really happening? And you'll actually see that section in my adventures, usually with the heading, what's really happening? And that is a critical point in the writing process for me, where I just write a very short amount of words that say, complete with spoilers, exactly what the premise is that's happening in this adventure. Because I feel if I can't clearly explain that early on in the process, then I can't build the structural foundation to kind of get the adventure through that premise into a meaningful conclusion. Some people would call that starting at the end in the writing process, or writing backwards.
Sure.
They would think about, what is the main point of contention here? Well, the main point of contention is the princess you were going to rescue in the castle. She was the bad guy all along. Okay, that's the main premise. All right, now we have to start and build the structural foundation that leads our players to uncover that at a climactic time, and how do they interact with that or investigate that. So I keep a whole list of just what's really happening ideas, just premises, and I think of them normally when I'm driving around for work, and then I write them down. And 9 out of 10 of them never see the light of day, and then 1 or 2 of them actually get my interest and more development and tend to become something.
Okay, great. Yeah, so starting with the premise, that's I think that's where a lot of people kind of start with. Like, they can see movies, TV shows, and they pull some sort of central premise of that out, and that's kind of where the starting process it may be for where the story is. So you kind of talked about this a little bit already. So when you're obviously, your players matter, your group, your target audience matters for it. What other kind of factors do you consider when designing an adventure? I mean, I know for you tend to make these games. I know you talked about this on one of your other interviews about how you make these games mostly for convention play. And that's where you do a lot of your gaming and GMing is in convention play. But what are there any other factors that you try to consider when, like, once you got your premise and then you start writing out the adventure? Are there other factors that you consider when writing them?
Yeah. Absolutely. So just coming up with the exciting or interesting premise is the fun part of creativity, because if you're a creative person, it doesn't take a whole lot of work. You're listening to something on the radio and it gives you an idea about a premise and you get excited about that. It's fairly, it kind of happens naturally or organically.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the steps are work. And so that's where you see people start to drop off depending on the level of work that they thought it was going to be versus the level of work that it actually turned out to be, and sort of how invested they are in putting that work in. So all the rest of the steps, surprise, writing is work, and
right.
and it takes some work. The other things I think of are genre, certainly, because with Savage Worlds, you have just
anything.
Limitless idea on where your genre is. So if you have a concept where the concept was the princess is really the bad guy the whole time, and you say, well, I imagine that in a stereotypical fantasy context, but hold on, let's list a couple other genres here and see what gets interesting. Maybe this is in a cyberpunk sort of theme. Maybe this is in a historical fictitious point in history, or in military history, or something like that. And then you start to get more pieces, or at least I do, that you can work in. Oh, well, that might be interesting because I could bring in elements of World War II, or something like that. So you have to consider today. Yeah, right. Yeah. So and is it a princess? Is it now it's a powerful heiress, or something like that? Everything starts to mutate, and you just see, what is something that hasn't been done a million times before. For me, it's, can I put something new out there that is worthwhile to people to take a look at when there's, just a sea of content, right?
Right.
And much of it is very good. So you kind of want to make your stuff stand out in one way or another. So genre is a really important consideration. I'm looking down at my notes here. I'm not ignoring.
Oh yeah, you're good.
The other thing is the structure and the span of the adventure is something you should consider early on, because it really dictates how much work you're gonna put into this. What I mean by that is this a one night 3 to 4 hour adventure module that goes from start to wrap up in that amount of time? That's the span in my lingo, I guess. Or is it something that's going to go 6 months and it's going to be very sandboxy and it's going to have lots of GM improvisation kind of baked in there or allowed for? You need to understand at least most of that when you start out. You can discover some of that along the way. If you say like, oh, this is really interesting and I think I'm gonna have to expand this into something bigger, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you should at least have an idea of where you're going in terms of the span, because it allows you to outline in the appropriate way. Is this going to be 3 acts or is this going to be 12? That
right.
type of
I think that actually kind of brings up a good question that maybe I should have asked at the beginning of this, is defining what we mean by adventure.
Yep.
Because in my mind, for me, this is kind of like my definition, in my mind, there's a strong difference between a campaign, an adventure, and an encounter. Basically, that an adventure is a series of encounters, and a campaign is a series of adventures. There may be linked adventures, maybe an overarching sort of plot, but like a adventure or a campaign is like usually multiple adventures happening along the way.
Sure.
Would you agree with that assessment?
I do, and I draw parallels to dramatic writing. Like, I mean, everybody's familiar with Shakespeare. You've got plays and you've got acts and you've got scenes, and in adventure writing, we've got campaigns and we've got adventures and we've got encounters, and they kind of, in my mind anyway, they become more concentrated and briefer in that order. An encounter for me can be something that at the table lasts as short as 3 to 5 minutes if I'm using quick encounter rules. Or it could be a more complicated thing that lasts an hour, but it's still a condensed piece, usually a high tension condensed aspect. And an adventure to me is usually kind of one start to finish arc which is either standalone, like these two products are, or it is a piece of a whole, a greater whole, which could be a plot point campaign, something like that.
Yeah, like one. Yeah, so like one plot point and a plot point campaign, maybe the adventure and all the plot points are the campaign.
Yeah, that's how I view it. It's that they're pieces of the whole. And with plot points, it gets a little messy because it's not always like this one happens and then this one and this one, especially in Savage Worlds where they tend to make them a bit more sandboxy. It's sort of like this one could happen, or they could go do this, or they might go do this for a while. So
or they may just skip a plot point entirely,
or they're going straight to straight left.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got kind of that helps us kind of like restructure where we're at here. This is what we're talking about when we talk about adventures. Not talking about big campaigns. We're talking about adventures. So when writing adventures, you kind of talked about some of the factors. When it comes to Savage Worlds specifically, how often are you thinking about like maybe different setting rules for your adventures, or do you tend to kind of stick to a particular set of adventure of setting rules, or do you like to play around with the ideas of different setting rules?
I think that the setting rules are fantastic because they take what we'll call core and they allow you to start to tilt the axis of that world to be a little more thematically towards leaning towards what you're trying to achieve. Like I think one of them is gritty damage. And that gives you, in an already quite lethal rule set, core Savage Worlds is quite lethal.
Quite swingy.
Swingy, and characters can die sort of like that. And gritty damage makes it worse and makes it more lethal.
I really want to play a game with gritty damage someday.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun and it's scary and it's a great way to build tension. And there's a lot of new characters that have to get made, but that's okay. That's part of the game. And so, you have all these setting rules that you can look at what you're creating and say, do these help tilt the axis towards the sort of existence that I want my players to find themselves in, the reality of the world that they live in? Do they live in a world where it's terrible and everybody's is in mortal danger at every moment? Do they not? Gritty damage would not be appropriate, in my opinion, in a game, a more of a kids on bikes, Goonies theme, type of game. Thematically, that would be inappropriate. And we would look at possibly other setting rules. One that pops into my head there might be, I think it's called Difficult Choices. I don't have it right in front of me, but yeah, you have to look at them and make sure they're suitable to basically the situation that you're trying to present, and do they evoke more of that feeling that you're trying to bring out for the players and for yourself as the person running the game.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm trying to think through some other things here. So you said that we talked about how the writing part. So we're in writing, we got the art premise. We need to start writing. We got to sit down and write. One of the pitfalls that we often see in a lot of newer GMs, newer writers, newer GM writer, whatever they're trying to do, is a problem with overwriting, or almost over preparing. In that, where basically what that happens is that it results in things like you have a narrative, but it's not balanced against mechanics, or you have this narrative that kind of eliminates some level player agency. How do you find yourself when you're writing your adventures, like balancing both the narrative aspect of the adventure with the mechanical aspect of you're playing inside of a game system, specifically Savage Worlds? as well as ensuring that players can still make choices that that those choices aren't going to extremely deviate the adventure, or kind of knock it off the rails per se.
Right. So especially in one-shot adventures, which is sort of, I'm kind of a one-shot wonder. My whole background is really going to conventions, sitting down with people, having 4 hours to run through a whole adventure with them, and then see you later, and it's on to the next session, and it's a whole new thing. That's really 95% of my gaming life, just kind of by circumstance. So I can't really ensure that I think people are going to have a full experience if I think that the adventure that I'm presenting allows people to just go in wildly divergent paths that sort of undo the intent of the adventure. The dangerous term is railroading, right? That's the term people kind of throw around, which is, he or she railroaded us through this adventure, right?
And often I think used unfairly, but yeah.
I think so as well, because I actually, let's see how many comments this get. I'm a fan of railroading. And I say that sort of as a joke, but sort of seriously, because players who are sitting down and have read a convention description of a game they want to play and the premise, remember the what's really happening, which you're going to share with people that you're trying to get into your game, probably without the spoilers.
Right.
They want to come and experience that. That's what they read on like tabletop events when they went to sign up for your game at your convention, and they said, oh, that interests me. I'm signing up for that. I'm dedicating my time to that. That's what I want to participate in. So to me, it's important that that's the experience they get. One big way that I do that is the adventures I write are always have boundaries of some sort. And those boundaries are not the GM saying, oh, no, you can't do that because that's not in the adventure. You have to go where I said. You have to go free the princess from the trolls in the cave because that's what I said. They are more engineered into the mechanics of play. So, for example, Shadows of the Sacred Hills, this shoulder, is bound by, is limited by time and by the emergencies that are unfolding during the time of the narrative. That makes it very difficult, near impossible, for the players to rationalize behavior that would waste time or would pull them away from sort of the very key existential threats that are occurring. So is that railroading? I guess, ask 10 different GMs and you probably get 10 different answers, but it is certainly helpful in terms of keeping players motivated as a group. And it's also very helpful in creating tension, which we can probably talk about in a different section, which is what players really react to at the table, is when you create those tense moments. In Iselion Hybrid, well, there's an obvious boundary in that, and I don't think this is a spoiler, which is that it takes place aboard a spacecraft. So the boundary there is
spoilers.
Spoiler alert. The boundaries there is the hull, because space is cold and a vacuum, and you don't want to go out there. So some are just like more obvious than others, right? And when you look at great stuff, that I've read by other great writers in Savage Worlds and other places, these boundaries are in place. I'm gonna throw out Tim Early, because his work Holler is a great example of this, right? So the whole Holler is completely encircled by, and I'm going to get the name wrong of what the mist or whatever it is that surrounds the Holler, but right. He beautifully set these parameters, which are like, you're in the Holler and you can leave the Holler, but you're going to walk into this mist and try to get to the city where the big boys are, and all sorts of bad things are going to happen to you, and you're either going to get lost or you're going to wind up somewhere else in the Holler, or something bad's going to happen. So there are boundaries set, in that kind of fashion as well. All those things serve to keep people on the subject matter.
Yeah,
I hope that answered your question. I wandered there a little.
I think so.
Okay.
And that makes sense. Like, it's definitely like there's somehow like some sort of like in adventure kind of boundary that kind of happens, or like something that makes it obvious what you need to be doing. and I wouldn't even call that railroading personally. I would just call that maybe some people might say linear storytelling. Just you're telling a story that this is the obvious beats of the story that have to happen because those boundaries are there, or like even if they're not like physical, like you can't do that. Like as a GM, just like it's kind of obvious in game that you can't do that. It's clear to the players, and they have the obvious beats that they're going to follow. Even though it's going to be this beat, this beat, this beat, it's not a railroad. It's just the linearness of the story.
Another struggle that you just reminded me when you said that a lot of GMs that I've talked to and that I used to have was, I have this linear structure. I've written this adventure and it's like a murder investigation, and they have to find these clues, and these clues are here, here, and here, and so I need them to go here, here, and here is the thinking that many GMs have. And keeping your informational points, whether they are clues, whether they are interactions, whether they're discoveries, whatever they are, keeping those dynamic instead of static and fixed in your adventure allows you to, number one, the freedom to put those informational points or clues wherever you want. And number two, it allows the players to have as much agency as they want. Okay, they're all in the town of Blackwood Gulch, where Shadows of the Sacred Hills takes place. They can go anywhere in town if they'd like to. Okay, they're all going to decide. Maybe I said, well, the clue is in the cattle barn, and I hope they go to the cattle barn to find the very important clue. And they all go to the church, right? So that's where people get flustered, is like, oh, are you sure you don't want to go to the cattle barn? Maybe you should go to the cattle barn. And we get into this railroady situation, right? No, the information point goes to the church, right? That's just sort of a method of, they call it the quantum troll method. If you,
I was going to say quantum ogre is what
ogre.
Yep. I was that's where I was going to go next. I was going to be like, so you're basically, we're setting up some quantum ogres here.
Yeah, so quantum clues instead of quantum ogres.
Right.
Maybe the clues are the ogres, but be willing to allow your players enough agency to explore a place, whether it's a ship, whether it's a town, whether it's a region, whatever it is, and be able to move those quantum pieces of information to collide with them so that they feel they've got the agency, and they do have the agency to do what they want. Since I've moved to sort of that method of running games, I've never looked back. It's a more exciting, it's more fun for me because I tend to run adventures many times as I'm playtesting them. And it really ensures that every session is very, very different from the next.
Nice. Cool. Okay. Yeah. That's you kind of like answer kind of what my next question is going to be about quantum ogres. Actually, you said something. I was like, oh, we're going to talk about quantum ogres. Basically, it sounds as though like you're okay with quantum ogres. I think some some players kind of, or some GMs, I think, get weary of quantum ogres. There's a really good video by Professor Dungeon Master, who where he talks about quantum ogres and kind of the is it a problem? And I don't think it's a problem. Sounds like you don't think they're necessarily problems. So yeah, use quantum ogres.
I mean, it either is or isn't a problem. But here's the thing, have that conversation with your play group. This is my style of running games. I want to make sure you hit all the tension points that are the good things about this adventure, right? I don't want you to just have, we're running this adventure, but you don't interface with any of the quality points that are in this adventure arc.
Right.
If you feel that in some way the GM is, I guess maybe deceiving you by moving information around or improvising as they go, speak up, say so, have that conversation. Maybe they're going to make some accommodations for you. Maybe you're going to find somebody else to play with. I don't know, but just have those conversations ahead of time. I'm not like, I don't keep that a secret from my players at the table. I let them know,
sure,
that this is what happened, at the end, we moved this around so that you hit that. And, I often play it off of a character's great success, oh, that clue wasn't there, but this person just rolled a 26 while they were interrogating this guy on the other side of town. Like, I'm going to have to
award
give them something more, and I'm going to have to get them in some way, some creative improvisation of how they get that info. So That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So I think from what you said, there's two things I want to ask, and I'm hopefully I'll remember both of them. But the first thing you kind of talked about was the tension of the game.
Yeah.
And so when you create your adventure, how are you ensuring that, because you can't just have tension at one point and then like kind of like if you leave the tension off for a bit, you kind of take your foot off the gas for the tension, players are going to start getting bored or not be less interested. How do you ensure in your games, at least, the tension is built and maintained throughout your adventure?
So I would say that's certainly easier with a one shot, because you only have to keep that tension building to sort of the breaking point and then the resolution for so long. And it's probably harder to do that night after night after night for 3 years, with a long running campaign, but it's not impossible. You should work tension into all of your stuff, because this is dramatic. It's role playing, it's drama. It has to have tension and conflict and adversarial, situations. But the ways I do that a lot is about time or resources. So I actually have a rule that I created called cinematic resources, which is if you pick up Iselion Hybrid, you will see a short section on this rule that I use specifically in that adventure, but you can use it and kind of strip it down and put a new coat of paint on it for other genres and other situations very easily. And that's a dice pool mechanic that really drives players nuts at the table in a good way.
It's a really cool mechanic. When I read through it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And you look at it, and for people who like, you look at I'm not going to say what it is, but you look at it and you read it, you can see the obvious, like, oh, this is going to drive characters and players to act, right? It's going to cause, it definitely has that tension, and that tension is going to, they need to act. It's going to happen.
And the other thing is, you just create this emergency situation, right, where the tension has to build. The room is filling up with water. You're going to need to act. You're not going to stop for a long rest, or or head to the store for some supplies or something, because the room is filling up with water and you're stuck in it. And so the action is forced by the events that you write into it. If you write a very relaxing, calm adventure, which I don't necessarily think is a terrible thing, if that's what you want to evoke,
right?
Then you will have natural, slow, low tension responses from most of your average players, I would say.
Sure.
One thing I'm just going to shout out here for shameless self-promotion is that cinematic resources thing is really cool. And if you happen to pick up Iselion Hybrid, you can learn all about it. And I sent Goose a link for the next 24 hours. I'm going to do a 20% discount on the POD and digital bundle. So if you're interested in what it is and you're watching, go get it, read it, and then tell me if I'm crazy or not.
Yeah, so the links down below for the Iselion Hybrid and for Shells of the Secret Hills do have the discount codes on them. So if you click on those links, it should, I think it's what's supposed to do, is just kind of add the discount to your cart, and then you should be able to add the items to your cart and get that discount, that 20% off discount. If for some reason those links do not work, please let me know. But I tested them earlier and they seem to have worked fine. So
if they're not working, we can fix them. They're working as of today.
Yeah, they should be working when I tested them. And like Peter said, it is for 24 hours is what you said. So yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to try to get the first people involved in this, because this is sort of my kickoff time frame for this, so try to start it off right.
Yeah, and again, I do want to reiterate the resource mechanic here is really cool. I haven't seen anything quite like it before, because it's not just I see like a lot of other like mechanics. It's just like I'm trying not to give it away though. A lot of mechanics. Well, a lot of mechanics just count down like the resource, like over time. Like this adds an element of randomness to the resources. I'm not gonna say how, but there's an element of randomness it guarantees loss. Does not offer a way to gain without players doing their own actions, but it doesn't guarantee loss. It doesn't guarantee loss, but it's almost guarantees loss in a sense. Not every time.
Yeah, you'd have to be very, very lucky for your resources in any situation to not be depleted somehow, which is realistic because they're resources,
And honestly,
you know, they could be water on a desert journey, right? Like it's gonna get depleted. Whether you drink it or it evaporates, it's gonna get depleted, and it could go really wrong.
You could get a really bad result, and you could.
And I've had tables that have been just demolished and devastated by some of those resource rolls. But I will tell you this, they were so excited when it happened that it didn't even really seem to matter, because it's like a casino when we make those rolls, because you only make them at critical times. It's not like an every 5-minute thing. There might be 3 of them in an adventure. And when you do, I mean, everybody's standing up. They're all pointing at who's going to have to roll it, because they're going to get mad at them if they roll poorly, and or they're dividing up the dice so everybody has to share in the either success or failure. And I mean, it creates a lot of tension to keep the adventure moving,
because the stakes are high for these rolls. Like it's not like there's like a minor setback or something. Like if they're depleted, like there's some major consequences for these. So without giving any more away, the resource pool feature in Iselion Hybrid is really nifty. I also, one of the first things jumped out at me when I read the adventure, so definitely check that out. Okay, so we're talking about making adventures. You're how we're going to keep tension. How do you find that specifically for Savage Worlds, how do you find the mechanics either helping or distracting from that tension? Do you see them kind of offering, because Savage Worlds is usually considered a fast-paced game. Do you find that that's generally helpful for that tension building?
Yes. Anytime you get bogged down in a long, complicated algebraic rule configuration, you're going to lower the engagement at the table for many people. That's when you're going to start to see the cell phones come out, and the warning signs that you're kind of losing the tension and the attention at the table. My personal GM style is I move fast, cinematic, and I would call it rules light. I know that some people fall different areas of the spectrum on that.
Right.
And I'm in favor of moving the story forward in interesting ways and giving the players a lot of agency and a lot of freedom of interpreting how their skills are actually going to be used. I think I'm probably quite lenient in that department if I had to describe where I was at on that. And so what that allows people to do is always be involved, and it allows me to go right around the table as well, because you can see when you're running a game that some people are more engaged or not, and that some people are very extroverted and some people are very soft-spoken or quiet. And so it's good to be able to shine a light on all of these people when you can. When I write an adventure, I know that the characters that I've pre-generated for this adventure have useful ways to interact with the premise of the adventure. I know that to be true because I did it. And so I can allow them all to interact and kind of move the camera from one player to the next and try to draw people into the action. What that does is, if you see somebody who might be maybe getting bored, is you get them going on something, and then what I do is I then force that to be an action point where other players have to get involved in it. Dramatic tasks are a great way of doing that, mechanically speaking, right? This guy's gonna fix the truck before the people chasing you get here to capture you, but he's probably not going to do it without 3 or 4 people helping him in different ways. So let's do this as a dramatic task. And how are you over there with no mechanical skills going to be helping this guy get the truck fixed, right? That's when the creativity comes out and people are like, wait, I can do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about dramatic tasks in Savage Worlds. So it allows for a lot of creativity for sure.
Yeah, so you get the bookish character goes, well, I'm going to the glove box and I'm getting the manual. Can I research, because I'm just gonna get to the page and start reading instructions here. For me, 100%. I'm like 1,000%. Please do that. Yes, that's excellent. You're yelling under the hood. On page 85, it
connect
says
the blue wire to the red wire.
Yeah, and the best part is when they roll that crit fail on that roll too,
Ooh.
and read the wrong page to the poor guy, and he crosses the wrong wires. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Shoot, I had a thought from you saying something. I was like, oh, that's amazing. I lost it. Okay, so
it'll come back.
Yeah, maybe. So. Oh, sorry. No. Okay. Yeah. So you kind of talked about how you have like some players are more soft spoken, players are a little more extroverted, and I'm sure this happens at gaming conventions where you're probably having players who are either new to Savage Worlds or new to the hobby, maybe in general. Maybe they haven't actually played a whole lot of role playing games in the past. How do you do anything in your adventures? Not necessarily these ones, but any adventures that you kind of write to ensure that both new players and experienced players both can be incorporated into the same game together and not have like aren't fighting each other essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I live, which is in New England, there are not a lot of Savage Worlds players, and we don't have the biggest Savage Worlds presence out here. Don't know why, but we just don't. So the convention circuit up here that I go to, I run Savage Worlds games, and a small handful of other people that I've met over the years run them. And the vast majority of people who sit down to my table are first-time Savage Worlds players. I do every convention. I get one or two people that say I've been playing it for, 20 years, and I'm good at it. But that's the
started with Deadlands original.
Yeah, right. And so most of the time I'm explaining, and I have gotten the how to play Savage Worlds 5-minute primer, down to pretty much an art form because I've just spit it out, 150 times at conventions. And the last thing I leave them on is I make damn sure they understand bennies and how they work, because if they don't, they really shortchange themselves on the experience. And then after that, I say, regardless of what it says on your character sheet, tell me what you feel your character would be doing and relax about the rules, and I'll tell you what you need to do to make it happen. And yeah, those new players are probably not going to min-max every possible, rule decision to their advantage because they don't have the knowledge of it. But that's okay, because they're going to be involved, and I'm going to tell them, oh, you can do 3 actions this round. You totally can do all of those things. It's going to be hard. You're going to have some big negative modifiers here, but you have bennies. So you want to try, and I just walk them through there. Almost all the time it's new players for us up here. So that's common for us. And it's actually, the guys who are comfortable with the rules section, the rules, and already are, I would call them veteran players. They don't need much help from me at the table. They're going to run their character. They're going to tell me what they're going to do. They're going to tell me what the rolls are they're going to make. I'm going to give them some modifiers if I need to, and they're going to do their thing. And it's almost more important to me to kind of cultivate these other new players in hope that they, see the value in the game system and enjoy it, and maybe become future players or run games themselves.
Sure. Cool. So, one of the biggest questions I think we see when I see new GMs and Savage Worlds trying to talk about their adventures they're trying to write for their friends or the play group, and they're asking for help on the subreddit. I swear it's like the number one question that gets asked pretty much like once a week is, how do I balance my encounters? And I think this often comes from a place where where people are used to other systems like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, where we have a lot of attrition based mechanics, hit points, spell slots, or and there's some of those in Savage Worlds. We have PowerPoints, we have bennies. Those are the kind of parts of the. But I think you'd agree that like wounds aren't really attrition. Like that's just bad stuff happening.
Yeah, it's fast attrition.
Right. Like it's a downward. It's a quickly downward spiral with wounds.
Yeah.
And so that's one of I think that's one of the most common questions that we see in the Savage Worlds community, especially for people coming from outside from like D&D and Pathfinder. When it comes to balancing encounters, how do you balance encounters, or do you imbalance encounters?
Yeah. So the rude answer is just don't. But to extrapolate on that, what I mean is, we're playing this game. This is Savage Worlds. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun, it's very swingy. Understand that the premise of this game is when you get into encounters, combat encounters that are lethal, in all of them, some character or NPC could die. I mean, that is the nature of it, and I enjoy that because I don't kind of care how tough you are, you and your 4 friends. If you're out in the woods, when a bear attacks, one of you or more is going to die. You know, I mean, that's the very likely outcome of that situation, right? And I know that, you know, RPGs do not have to be simulations of reality, but it's acceptable to me when I see something as a dramatic, tension-filled game, and we're creating a scary situation, a combat encounter where people can be hurt, that everybody at the table is worried that, oh, this might be it for my character, even if it is, you know, they found a crazed young boy and he's got a stick and he's coming at them in the forest. You know, your characters kind of know after they've been through this a few times. I mean, your players, after they've been through this a few times, like, hey, we got to treat this as a threat. We got to figure out how to deal with this. You know, we need to throw a net on this kid, or we need to neutralize him somehow, or figure out how to do this because he could hurt us. You know, I like that. I like that feel running a game. I don't like the feel of saying, you know, oh, what's the encounter with? Oh, it's with 2 kobolds. Okay, I'm not interested because this is just die rolls until it's over, and it's never gonna bother me. And to me, I don't get reward from that. And I'm not in any way trying to denigrate people who do, because there's way more people who do enjoy that than enjoy what I enjoy, obviously by the numbers. I think it's okay, but play those games. Play slower, attrition-based, high hit point, you know, work them away type of game systems if that's what you enjoy. Savage Worlds is far swingier. It is both I think the biggest benefit of the system, and some people would say the biggest detractor of the system, depending on how they value that piece in their gameplay.
Yeah, I think I find personally that Savage Worlds, because of the swingy nature and kind of like the lack of attrition, that it allows me a little more freedom to kind of focus on the feeling of the game. The feeling, like invoking feelings in players, feelings, themes, and kind of more narrative things, without setting aside mechanics. Like the mechanics still highly influence the feeling, without kind of and almost kind of help reduce a little bit of that metagame-iness of the game without getting rid of mechanics. Essentially, like the mechanics are still fully present, but you can still focus more on the narrative function with those mechanics.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's like page 1 or 2 in the Savage Rules core rulebook, where I don't know if it was Shane who wrote this section or not, but they basically say, like, in this rules system, if you want to play as uncomplicated as sitting on the couch and mostly talking and making a couple rolls in the night, these rules are for you. And if you want to get very crunchy and, you know, detailed tactical combat, these rules are also for you, because there's all the pieces in here, and you just sort of a la carte, you take what you need and you put it into your game, and you talk to your players in your group and you say, what kind of game do we want to enjoy? And you go from there. That's the basis, right? Don't run the game that you don't want to play.
Cool. So, it's all about sorry. Yeah, and I've even had players who have kind of stepped away from Savage Worlds because they didn't like the wound system and like the swinginess, and that's fine. But I love it. I like it a lot, and it's one of the reasons I love this game. One of the things that you kind of mentioned earlier was I don't know if I think you dropped it. I think you used this word. I'm not positive, but you kind of like an improv. Using improv in our games. I kind of mentioned how plot point campaigns, they kind of leave a little more gap to fill by players. They get like a bare structure to the adventure. A lot of our one sheets that you see out there kind of do this too. But there's elements for leaving open to more improv from players, but from players and from GMs, or at least room for players to do things that require improv from game masters. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of GMs are scared of is the improv element. It's obviously we're playing a game where we're role playing, and there's going to be improv, right? That's kind of the nature of the beast. But what would you recommend to players who, or I guess to game masters who maybe they're overwriting because they don't want to have to improv something. They're trying to cover every basis so they don't have to make something up on the fly. How would you encourage them to write less, to kind of embrace that improv, to learn how to maybe do that better? Or is there any tools that you would recommend to kind of help with that improv element?
The first thing is whether you write 400 words to outline your night or your session, or you write 4,000 words, your players are inevitably not going to do exactly each footstep that you've outlined for them. And nor should they. If that's what you want to have happen with your characters, if you want them to do exactly what you have prescribed, footstep for footstep, you should write a novel, because then you're in control and your characters will do whatever you tell them to do for all 400 pages. That's not what a role-playing game is. A role-playing game is collaborative at its essence. So the GM is not the boss. They are the facilitator, and they are in collaboration with a group of players. I believe that's the kind of the core agreement, at the table, is the GM is there to have fun too, right? He didn't just come here to be miserable this evening so you could play. And so you have to kind of have that sort of agreed upon idea, and then don't try to write your way out of the inevitable, things that change and that you need to be able to react and maybe improvise on. Have a few like handy backup tools, like know right away that, other townsfolk, in this town are probably not as skilled as your characters, and they probably have D4s in like almost every average skill, and a D6 in like the thing they're good at. Just know that off the top of your head, so that you don't have to go looking in some book to decide, what their stats are. If they're a little more skilled at what they are, give them D6s and a D8. Right. Things like that, and that'll allow you to just be like, I'm not getting scared by the fact that they're talking to someone that I don't know about. And, I have an idea of what I'll need to roll and, should some things happen here. Okay. The other thing is, it's totally okay if things go really sideways to say, hold on, guys, let's take 15 minutes because you guys just went way off course on me, and I want to make sure this is enjoyable. Let's take a snack break, bathroom break. I'm going to write down some stuff. We're going to come back and I'll have a little bit better command of what this is. I don't think your players would begrudge you that. I don't picture a group going, no, now come up with it. You got to act, so communication, set the expectations with your group, and don't just give up on the idea that you can just prescribe, if you write enough, every possible iteration of every, group decision and random roll. I mean, that's just wild. I would only be disappointed if I had to try and do that.
Yeah. So in my experience, and I kind of stated this at the beginning of, is I pretty much run only pre-written adventures or campaigns. And one things I've been trying to do is get away from necessarily is trying to branch out within the adventures I'm writing or running to more things. And as I look through my Savage Worlds career, I've run right now. I'm running the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, and that's very detailed. There's a lot of details. I've run one sheets in ETU. I've run the plot point campaign for Last Parsec, and in each of those ones, all the ones that had less information, those are the ones that I enjoy the most. The ones my players enjoy the most.
Interesting.
And the one that I think we had the most fun with was I rolled a random adventure in the ETU adventure generator for East Texas University. So it's like, you pull, I think it's like card pulls. So you do random card pulls, and I had to make up I made up something a little bit ahead of time, not much game prep, a little bit ahead of time, mostly on the fly. And I got the most comments from my players about how fun that adventure was than any other adventure I've run.
That's great, because what it is you reacted to the conditions at the table,
exactly.
right? And you created like, okay, here's the situation. I'm not going to force some other premise that doesn't fit here with the actions of my players. I'm going to create a premise, that realistically would be present, based on the decisions of your group of players, right. And that's just way more rewarding all around.
Right. And so it's kind of like, I think that like in the end, it's like when you write an adventure, there's more like you said, leave room, kind of make it a little more bare bones, kind of get your I think your bones to the adventure, and then kind of let the game, as you play the game, kind of let the flesh and muscles kind of build on top of it. Yeah. Is there any, I have some things in mind, but I want to ask you, do you have any tools that you would recommend for helping out more improv stuff?
Well, I mean, I don't have any actual like improv dramatic, training of any kind like that.
Oh no, yeah,
or anything like that. But I would say, be confident. The more confident you are in the rules in the book, not meaning you have to memorize what is on every page and how everything works, but the more you understand the core rules and you're comfortable with them, the more confident you're going to be at the table. Mm-hmm. I read the core rule book once a year. It's usually in January. Like I just start the year and I just read the thing again. And like, 3/4 of it, I'm like, okay, I already read that. And I don't read the descriptions in the bestiary, and I don't read any like flavor text type of stuff. I just read the rules, which is actually, I counted it. It's only like 39 pages of that whole book is the actual mechanics of the game, which means it's very easy to read and understand. Every single year, I pick up a little something else. I remember something I forgot. I find something else interesting to incorporate, and it keeps me fresh. And then the other thing is, when I don't know what's going on rules wise, and a lot of people get panicky, like, well, I don't know how to do this mechanically, so I'm going to try to avoid it with my group. Just start hand waving stuff. Use rules that you are comfortable with. Yeah. Oh, is that combat going to be too complicated for you right now, and you're not prepared with all the stats of these new monsters that you just made up because things went out of control? Okay, do it as a dangerous quick encounter. You don't need the stats for all the characters. Okay, you just have them roll their fighting, and you find out who makes it through, who gets bumps and bruises, who takes wounds, and you deal with it after. And that's all okay. That's okay. And it keeps the tension high, and it doesn't bog things down. So, I mean, there's little things, and Savage Worlds gives you a lot of things that allow you to just say, we're going to keep this moving. We're going to keep this moving in a way where you guys are rolling dice, you're participating, and we don't have to stop and, rewrite the whole book.
Yeah.
Here's an example, because you were talking about, freedom within the adventures. I got a text message from a GM who was running Shadows of the Sacred Hills.
Okay.
And they said, hey, I got your adventure. It's really good. I just ran it for my play group. And I said, great, how'd it go? And they said, well, the first session, they only got to X. And I said, oh, they're supposed to get to that in like the first 20 minutes. Like, what happened? And he goes, oh, no, it was awesome. They did this, and that. And I created this thing in the town that you didn't have. And they went over and they spent some time, figuring that out. And I dropped some clues there. And now they're going over to this first point. And so we're going to do it in 3 sessions instead of 1. And, my reaction to that is awesome. Make it your own. It's your own thing. If your players are loving it and you're loving it, that's once you put the work out there as a creator, it's out there to become
whatever
what it's going to become,
whatever they want, whatever you want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not up to me anymore. Right. My part is done at that point. And so, yeah, maybe you take a one-shot adventure and you say, oh, this gives me all these other ideas. I'm going to make this into some whole bigger thing of my own, based on some of the ideas I got in here. That's awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as we kind of start to land the plane a little bit, if you have any questions for Peter about adventure design, or for myself about adventure design, I'll try to do what I can. Leave them in the comments. Peter is going to be back with us next week to kind of answer any questions. We're going to try to gather as many questions as we can about from around the web, around the Savage Worlds community, about what you guys may want to know about adventure design that we maybe we didn't talk about today. But as we on the plane, and as you kind of bring in those questions, Peter, what are some other downfalls that you see in people making adventures that maybe we didn't talk about yet on the stream? What are some like common pitfalls that you see that people kind of like trap themselves in?
Some people have really beautiful, great creative ideas, and they write way too much on them, and it's because they love that thing, that setting, that premise that they have in this whole world that they have to get out of their head, and they write 50,000 words on every piece of back history for 1,000 years for this setting. And although that stuff is great and can eventually all be incorporated into this great world you have, if you're getting started and you're just trying to play and get things going, less is far more. Just start trimming the fat. It doesn't mean you have to delete it forever. It doesn't mean you have to kill the thing you love. It just means, make another copy of that document where you slash big chunks of that aren't pertinent to sort of the early involvement of your play group and them becoming invested in it. Because if you don't have that, you're never going to get to that 8th or 12th session where you get to drop that little nugget of history that you wrote that you loved. You'll never get to it if you don't start with kind of the basic stuff. Right. That's a big pitfall for people, is they have this huge idea.
Yeah,
and it's good to have huge ideas, but you have to make sure that you then structurally, in a smart way, dish out that information so the whole thing doesn't topple over on you. So paying attention to writing structure is really important. The easiest way to do that is just take a good author that you know and that you like, and get their work. If it is an adventure, if it's a novel, and look at the form and take another piece of paper and write down what they're doing. They spent 1.5 pages on the introduction. They spent 2.5 pages on this. They spent this many words on this. Analyze structure. That's not stealing. It's the same as if you looked at how a house was built and said, I think, in my case, the roof is going to go on the top as well. It's the same. It is the same thing. Because there are structures that work and there are structures that fall down. And it's the same in writing as it is in, like, the analogy of the house there. There are things that work and there are things that don't hold the weight.
Oh. All right. Is there anything else?
Boy, I think I've talked your ear off, but
no, that's fine.
I could keep going another hour or two if you'd like.
Well, maybe we'll come back with more next week. So if you guys have any questions that you guys want to ask Peter, leave in the comments down below. Leave them wherever you're seeing this post. Leave some comments, leave some questions. We're going to try to answer these next week. But maybe we'll come back with some of my own, and after I kind of regurgitate or digest a few of these things.
Yeah.
So Peter, if people want to follow you, where can they find you?
So you can find me over on Facebook under Pear Tree Studio. And you can also get a link to the Discord from there if you'd like, which is also Pear Tree Studio. I'm not on any other platforms, at least not in a meaningful way. Although I'm thinking about, typically the YouTube thing, I'm trying to, network with people like you instead of actually having to do the daunting task of, creating that stuff myself. I don't think that would be really good for anybody. So yeah, that's how you can find me. The products are available on DriveThruRPG. So
you can follow him as a publisher on DriveThruRPG. So if you want to see, like, get notifications every time DriveThruRPG he posts something through there, you just follow them. I have probably at least 10 publishers I follow through DriveThruRPG just to be notified of anything they make. Also, awesome. you included.
Oh, very good. Awesome. I'm honored. The only other way I would say is if you happen to be a viewer that is in the northeastern continental United States and you attend any larger conventions in the New England area, I'm usually at those or connected to them in some way. So, look me up there and come say hi.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that's going to kind of be it for this evening. We have gone about 20 minutes, almost 20 minutes over what we usually do. So,
oh boy,
that's fine. Not a problem. So like I said, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. We're going to call it night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.